Yes.
This is great.
Okay. Let me turn up the volume.
Oh my goodness, I've been ready to unpack a whole lot with you. Oh
I'm
my
ready,
goodness,
girl.
you know what? I think actually the whole reason I wanted to have this conversation is because of a comment you made. Can you imagine a comment?
Oh, yeah.
It all started with a comment.
From the comment.
I was really, really surprised to hear Boris that he's been married for like some 25 odd years with Nicole. I knew they've
Hmm.
been together for a while, but I was like, and to hear him say, I knew that she was going to be my wife before we got
Yeah.
married. Like, I knew it. I told her. He was like, I told her.
See,
Like,
he's like, I told her, yeah, she's gonna
like
be my
what?
wife, and she got upset. She
You
got
know?
upset at me. Yeah, because
Ah,
it seemed like he was kind of a player, right? Because
exactly.
I
I
was
mean,
reading
he's the
I was reading the
stud.
comments, and she was like, I said that for a reason because you had X, Y, and Z in your phone. But regardless of what he had in his phone, he
Right.
knew she was the one.
Ah.
And
Like
that,
regardless of
like,
whatever the guy has going on in his life then,
yes,
but when he meets his wife, he knows. I'm like,
he knows.
yeah, that completely took me.
Uh,
And I'd heard before other people like talking about this thing, like, oh, men know, but you don't really know what that means, that level of
yeah,
discernment. But how
yeah.
do they know? How can they just know? So anyway, hang on. I want to read it. I want to read the
You can
whole
read it. Go ahead.
thing,
Yes.
the whole thing before we unpack it. I've got two questions in one, but I want to read this
Okay.
question first for us to start off. So you
Hmm.
said, but this is the comment section of that video, right? Where Boris
Hmm.
said, I went to her trailer and I told her, you're going to be my wife. We're going to have two kids
Two
or something like
kids.
that.
Yeah.
So you said, I always tell people it's spiritual. First of all, first line, I was like, wait, this is gonna be good. This is gonna be good. And then you
Hmm.
said, men often know who their wives are. That's why I tell women don't get offended when a man doesn't see you as the one. It isn't personal. There is someone who aligns not only with who you are today, but with who we're becoming years from now.
Yes.
And when it's aligned, you feel it. If women stop idolizing marriage and looking to relationship status for validation, more of us would recognize that feeling too. You'll know
Come
when
on, you just gave
someone,
me chills, girl.
I have goosebumps. You'll know when someone is your person, and you'll also know when they aren't. When
Hmm.
someone isn't the one, even if they're a great person, there's usually a sense that something is missing, a
Hmm.
subtle misalignment, and a desire to keep searching. But when you
Yes.
meet the one meant for you, it settles deep within. It doesn't feel forced or confusing. It feels like we're home.
Yes.
Chills, literally.
Yes.
Like I felt that. I was so moved. I was like, hang on, who is this woman? You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like I was
girl.
like,
That's so.
I need to meet this. But I was like, who? And there's actually a guy who commented as well, I think, underneath. So it was me and him, I think. I was like 25 minutes into my date or something like that, and
And he
I
knew
knew
that was
that
his
that
wife.
was my wife.
Yes.
And you kind of said, wow, that's a beautiful story. Thanks for sharing and whatnot. And I also came in, I was like, this is a top tier, high quality comment. Just that's wisdom beyond. I didn't even know how old you are. That was not in my mind. I'm just thinking she is so wise. Who is this person? And I got in touch. I was like, girl, let's unpack this. Because
Yes.
I was really interested to know. So, what
Yes.
inspired that perspective? And is it applicable broadly, or is it faith-based? Do Christian men
Right.
discern, or can everybody discern? What inspired you to make a comment like that?
Okay, I'll start with that question. I would say a lot of things have inspired me. The first thing that inspired me is my own relational experiences, and not just with men and dating, but also with friendships, right? But I'll
Oh.
just talk about men and dating. I have never really been the type of woman to think about marriage and children like that, right? And until my relationship with God, until my relationship with God. So I used to wonder why I didn't feel what other women felt. Don't get it twisted. Like I was in relationships, I had relationships, and I cared for the men that
Mm.
I was with. I even loved them, but not enough for me to be like, I can see myself marrying this man.
Oh
I can
yeah.
see myself having children with this man. And then I started forming a relationship with God. And while I started working on a relationship with God, I was in a relationship already. I was in a romantic relationship. And I was dating this guy for about 4 months. And he made a comment. Like it wasn't even just a comment, it was a number of things that was like, oh, this not the one. You know, I was feeling like, why don't I feel deeply for him? He's everything on paper. You know, he's good looking. You know how women want the six
The
pack
checklist.
and 6 foot in the, all that stuff. He's all of that, but why do I feel like he's not the one? And then, like I said, I started to use the relationship with God to ponder on these things. And I'm like, and also, why do I feel so bad? Why do I feel so bad about
Mm.
just being intimate with him? Why don't I feel good about it?
Yeah.
And then the Lord spoke to me in my spirit and said, because he doesn't love you. And
Oh.
when I thought about what that meant, I'm like, well, Lord, what do you mean by that?
You
You
mean?
know, what you mean, he doesn't really love you. And then I had to think about it like, well, do I love him? And the fact of the matter was I didn't. So as I started to get closer to God, the Lord started to show me about how love happens between men and women, how matches happen between men and
Mm.
women. And so the story of Adam and Eve is what, boom, gave me so much insight about my own relational issues and why is it that I never saw any of the men I dated as my husband, especially when God was maturing me and the versions of myself that were in relationships wasn't really aligned with God. I
Mm.
had just started forming relationship with God. And so it's like the guy didn't match the version of where God was taking me, right? And so I'm just stay with
I'm
me.
with you.
I I I get I'm sorry if I feel like I'm
No, no,
ranting,
no.
but
I'm
I get
with
to
you.
Genesis. Okay. So I get to Genesis and I'm reading about how he created man first, right? Gave man identity,
Yeah.
gave man purpose, and then gave man partner. And the design of Eve was just very deep and symbolic. I noticed that the Lord made Eve from Adam's rib.
Mm-hmm.
He made Adam from the dust, from the ground. He
Mm-hmm.
could have made Eve the same way. He could have just took some more dust
Yeah.
and molded a woman, but he didn't. He was very intentional about taking part of the man and something that's inside of the man, something that's needed for the man to actually live, to breathe. His rib that took his rib and formed Eve. And so I said that is so deep
Yeah.
because women tend to be more internal creatures than men. So when he saw Eve, he knew that Eve had came from him. That was the second part that was significant to me. He said, "Bone of my bone, flesh
Yes.
of my flesh, for you have been taken out of man, and so you will be called woman."
Woman.
And so what that let me know is that when Adam saw Eve, he saw a reflection of himself. So much so that he gave Eve part of his name. And so I said, so that's what men see. When they see their wives, they see a reflection of their inner
Themselves.
selves. And that's how a man, and this applies to a man who knows himself, a man who's whole, because we have to remember that Adam was formed in wholeness. He wasn't formed in a world with that was broken,
Yeah.
right? So he, before the fall, he was a man who was physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally whole.
Together.
Yes, together, right. So he knew who he was. He was secure in his identity. He was secure in his purpose because he had relationship with God. He walked with God. The Bible said they walked with God in the garden. And so it was because Adam was whole that he knew himself. So when God gave him his partner, who was made from an inner part of him, he knew her when he saw her, and he knew that she reflected him. So I was like, wow, God, that is so deep. That explains it. So men know who their wives are because number one, they know who they know who they are. And when they see themselves in a woman, they know that's my rib.
Oh,
And I feel like I don't think it's one-sided. It's not just a man thing. The same way men know who their rib is, women know the rib they belong to.
oh, okay. In reverse.
Yes, in reverse, when you know who you are as a woman, when you know who you are, when you know your purpose, and when you walk with God, you also know the rib you come from and the rib you don't come from, the rib you were formed from and the rib you're not formed from. And so that's what I was like, wow, so that explains it. The relationships that I was in before I was in relationship with God, I was not I didn't match with any of those men. I was not their rib because they didn't align with me. They didn't align with who I am as a woman. They don't think like me. Morally, they don't come from the same place that I come from. My heart posture is set up different. And also my future, which I'm not even that sure about, but the Lord knows,
Knows it.
they are not built to accommodate that. So I do feel like it could be applied outside of the spiritual, but I feel like when it comes to who accommodates your future, there's no way for us to practically know that.
Mm,
Only God knows that. So, I feel like that's the spiritual portion of it. And you feel that. So yes, when I was dating the guys that I was dating, I was just nothing like them. Once I really got to know them, I was just nothing like them, and I'm like, I can't see myself marrying this guy. I
ah,
can't see myself having children with this guy. I'm nothing like him. And I truly believe now that God has enlightened me just through that short scripture, through that short verse,
mm,
now that God has enlightened me, and then you see that pattern continues in the Bible. These men know who their wives are,
yes.
right? And,
Boaz.
and so, right, Boaz, yeah, Isaac, Jacob, they know who their wives are. And so every time I see stories that follow Adam and Eve, I feel like Adam and Eve was like the design that kind of gives you the blueprint of,
Yeah.
yes, this is how a man knows who his wife is. And but also, like I said, vice versa, because it has to work vice versa. It can't just work from a man because the relationship requires two people. A woman has to be in agreement that,
Yes.
yes, you are my husband, right?
Yes.
So, women, we also have to know who, like I said, who we match with, who rib we were formed from. And that requires you to know who you are as a woman,
Hmm.
to know your purpose as a woman, have your relationship with God, because the Lord is going to tell you what your purpose is, right? He'll even give you foresight so that you know, okay, who's the man going to be that can accommodate who I'm going to be based
Right.
on what the Lord has showed me about my future. So, yes, I feel like it's spiritual. But for people who are not spiritual, and it's like, well, how can you put this in a practical sense?
Yes.
I would say you align with a person who is close to you in character, your values,
Principles.
your morals,
Yeah.
your principles. Yes, that's what you look for. You can't be a person who's compassionate, who's selfless, who's empathetic, but then you're dating someone who's selfish, who
Selfish.
lacks compassion, right? Who lacks sympathy. It's just not going to work,
Yeah.
right? And so a man could just no one is perfect. God even
Of
matches
course. Yeah.
he matches imperfect people all the time. It's just people who are aware of who they are, they know who they can coexist with.
Yeah.
And I think that women, we tend to be influenced differently when it comes to romance. We tend to also go off of feeling. And I do think that men just have more of a practical, logical,
Logical type of,
uh,
yeah, way
yes,
to
approach to
approach
relation.
things. Yeah.
Yes. And so men tend to consider who they are as a man, flaws and all. And when they look at women, I think that they kind of subconsciously ask themselves, like, can I be myself with her? And if not, because she doesn't match him, it's like, no, she's not the one. Even if she's wonderful, it's like, she's not like me, so she's not going to understand me. I can't be myself with her, so that's not the one.
A
Yeah.
simple,
So,
silly thing like if a guy doesn't think that you get his humor or you guys can have, banter, like you laugh at his jokes, you don't think he's funny,
right.
like he can just like dismiss you. And it's I used to find it so
Yeah.
silly, like you know what I mean, having friends, like guy friends growing up, like they used to tell me this
Hmm.
all the time. Like if she can't laugh at my joke, if she doesn't get my quirky, my silly thing, my goofiness, and
Yeah.
nah, I can't rock with her like that. I'd always like wonder, like,
And it's like, it
what?
sounds ridiculous.
It
Like, what?
sounds so
You,
silly,
like,
but
that's
they
ridiculous.
they really consider that,
Yeah.
like you
Yeah,
say, and they have to
because
be free and be themselves.
because it creates a peace of mind. It creates a safe space, right?
Mm,
You should, if you're going to be with someone forever, you should be able to be yourself,
yeah,
right? You should be able to be, and I feel like being yourself is being honest.
exactly.
And as much as, women complain, oh, men are just not honest, that's because, men are not dating women that's aligned with who they are,
It's a
right?
total
A lot of men,
mismatch. Yeah.
exactly, it's a mismatch. But this is the reason why men choose to marry who they can be honest with. Because who wants to spend the rest of their lives with a woman that they have to pretend to be somebody
Oh.
else for,
It's
right?
exhausting, even
It
pretending to be
is.
someone you're not for a day. It's
Yes,
exhausting. You want to be comfortable. You want to let your head
absolutely.
down. And like you said, no one's perfect, but when you know
Right.
yourself, you know what to work on. You know what it
Yes.
is about you that you don't like, what you need to work on. Like you're saying, it's a journey that, okay, I'm being honest with myself, and therefore I can be honest with this man because he's been honest with himself and he's been honest with me, and it's
Right.
like it's that honesty, that vulnerability that both of you are
Yes.
allowing yourself to create this atmosphere, this safe environment for this romantical relationship to blossom and bloom and all the things. But
Absolutely.
I used to just say to myself, I don't want to be this kind of person who gives into the narrative of we have to kiss so many frogs before you meet your prince or whatever. And I used to think,
Yeah.
why do you have to kiss so many frogs? Like, why can't you just know? There must be a way to just know. I used to, go over and
Yeah.
over about it in my head. Like, there's no
Right.
way, man, for you to get hurt, for you to, because you would be with someone and you would feel that, nah, this person, they're just not, like you're saying, they're just not anything that I'm about. They're just
Yeah.
totally different. And then so you think, why am I with him if I know
Right.
that this is not, I don't see a future, but you're still
Yes.
wasting time
Trying to
still
make it
being
work.
with him. Ah,
Yeah. I like what you said when you say, I hated this notion that you had to kiss so many frogs to get to your prince. And you know something that in my relationship with God, once the Lord let me know who I was as a woman, once I realized who I am in God, once I realized my purpose, I realized that I don't have to kiss a bunch
yes.
of frogs anymore for my prince now
Yes.
because I have guidance. I have inner guidance that says this is the type of man that aligns with you.
Yeah.
So now I know exactly who that man is, character-wise, his values, the shared purpose that we
Right.
have. I know what that looks like now. So as soon as I meet someone, I'm not wasting any time. the first thing I do is I seek guidance from God. I
Yeah.
say, God, because the God knows more than I do. I said, is this someone? Is this him? And God will say no, or he hasn't said yes yet. So, it's been no. But I trust in God to say either yes or no. And that has been saving me a lot of peace.
A lot
You
of
know,
headache,
um,
girl.
a lot, girl,
Yes.
this is the most peace I have had
Yeah.
in my life. I don't participate. I tell people I don't participate in modern dating anymore. Since my relationship with God, since my walk with God, I don't do the whole seeking or swiping thing. I don't feel the need to do it because, like you said, I think it's an unnecessary process when you have God guiding you. And I'm just done, like with kissing frogs just to get to my prince. I'm done with dealing with people that are not in alignment because it does take a lot of energy, from you. So,
Yes.
so yeah, that's my, I guess
Anyway,
my explanation. I hope that answered your
it
questions.
does.
Yeah.
It really does. And I've talked about this before with friends. Like it's sad when sometimes we get caught up as women.
Yeah.
You're thinking, oh my gosh, when will it be? When will it happen for me? And all
Hmm.
that. I studied the Bible in Hebrew, and when I got to Adam, like his name means from the dust. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like when I meet someone, one of the first things I ask them, like, do you believe in God? And
Yes.
when they are like, no, I mean, I do, but there's no but about it. It's either you
Yeah.
believe or you don't.
It's either you believe or you don't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's usually the first indicator that says, oh, label, this is not your person. I mean, that verse in Amos, I think it's chapter 3 or something, can two walk together if they don't agree? Like we
If they,
cannot,
nope.
how can we
Yeah.
be together if we don't agree? I'm always thinking
Right.
of the future. And sometimes if I'm with someone, we're having dinner or we're
Yeah.
having lunch or what, it's a date, right? I'm all dressed up, I'm looking cute, but I'm thinking, I'm listening to the conversation and how his mind works about things, how he sees the world. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are we going to teach our kids? I'm sitting there at the dinner thinking, like,
This what I'm, girl,
like,
me and
hang
you
on,
right here. I'm like, this
this
ain't
is not,
this ain't my husband. This not my husband. Lord, this is not my, why am
and
I
my
here? This is
friends,
not my
why
husband.
am I here? Like, can we get the bill?
Yes.
For me, it's also the thing of worship on Sabbath, and then you have people who worship on Sunday. Girl, that narrows my pool by like, when kids come into the picture, Daddy, why is mom going to church on Saturday? Why are you going to church on Sunday? And do we take the kid, to both our churches or what? It's just not going to work.
Yeah. But do you think that's something that could be worked out though? Because I understand, having a day that's fully reserved for the Lord, right? I just know that when it comes to just rituals, the
Yeah.
Lord cares more about intention, right? He cares more about us prioritizing worship, period. And so, do you think that could be something that you two could compromise and
As a
work out
compromise, yeah,
if he's devoted to God, he worships God,
yeah,
and he
I've
is
thought about
being
this a
led
lot.
by God. Yeah, I don't think that one is an unequal yoke, right? Because I feel like regardless, the Lord is not going to condemn either one of you for, Sabbath being on Saturday or Sunday. That I don't think that matters to the Lord at all. Just as long as you worship him, as long as your heart is set up
I think
a
for
certain
me, I
people.
can't
Yeah.
see myself converting
Yeah.
to, and like that's the thing also, like a lot of
Right.
families expect the woman to, be the one who converts to the man's church. You know what I mean? Like,
Ah, okay.
so I don't see a world where I will then leave my church, fully join his church and worship,
Oh, got
his
it.
Sunday
So
work.
it's right,
This is for the rest of my
right, right.
life. I don't see it.
Mm.
In fact, I would rather be with someone who actually doesn't have a church
Okay, so
because
it's a church thing.
it's
Okay.
it's it's a church thing, but it's also not
Yeah.
really because but for me it's about knowing how I came to the decision of worshiping on the Sabbath. Because my family,
Okay.
all of them worship on Sunday. Early days, even my family didn't get it. They said, but baby, we will all worship God and we raised you to worship God and love God and know God. I was like, I get that, mom, and I'm forever grateful for giving me that foundation. I actually would not be in this position to be able to make this kind of decision if I had not had the foundation from home. The fact
Hmm.
that both of you have raised me. I've got a mom, I've got a dad who love me, who actually raised me in church. I know who God is. That's why I'm confident in my position now to take it a step further to say I want my own relationship with God. Studying the word upon research upon all these things and going back to history, going back to the culture at the time and all these things, studying the Bible in Hebrew, a lot of things that
Yeah.
contributed to making my decision. And I thought, okay, I want to actually observe the day before it was changed by the world and all the stuff and all the stuff.
Oh, got it. Got it. I was
So
just
I
about to
want a
ask you
man who
that.
understands that, not
Yeah, yeah.
necessarily a man who's also an Adventist in that sense, but a man who
Mhm.
understands that and who won't want to take me away from that. I love studying, I love reading. That's what drew me to the Adventist community. It's all about the text.
Okay.
It's all about like,
Yes.
yes, sola scriptura and everything, reading and studying the word. If he takes me away from studying like the word deeply like that, I just don't see how it would work.
I think, that God has a match for everybody.
Yeah.
I really believe that. There's going to be a man
Yeah.
who either worships on the Sabbath like you do, or he respects the fact that you do, and he
Yes.
allows you that. He doesn't take that away from you. And I feel like that's with anything. We're not going to do the same exact things that our partner does,
Yes.
right? But our partner is going to have the capacity to be able to accommodate our own individuality. I know my partner's not going to do everything that I do, but he's going to be like, I love that about her. Or, yeah, that's her thing. She likes to do that. I think it's pretty cool. I don't do it. I got my own thing I do, but I think that's pretty cool.
You have to
Yes,
be able to see yourself doing life with this person. So not the
absolutely.
flashy fancy stuff, the
Hmm.
mundane things, going out
Yeah,
to get groceries, going if you can see yourself tolerate and not deal breakers, but silly things that he does, and you
yeah.
can
The
live with it,
flaws.
the flaws,
Yeah,
you can live with it. It doesn't drive you up the wall, Even if people are not super spiritual and people are not approaching things from a faith-based context or
yeah,
perspective. But practically, like you say, how can you see your life with this person? Something he does drives you up the wall or triggers you to become something you're not. Imagine this
yeah,
happening over time. Imagine being so mad one day because you're not saying it from the get. You tolerate something you shouldn't be tolerating. And then one day you do something so bad, you end up in jail. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Something so bad. It
yeah.
triggers you to the point you become somebody completely unrecognizable to your family, to your
Right.
friends, and you do something to hurt this man. And he never even knew that he's
That it was a problem.
so
Yeah, and
why
and you
do we
know
do
what?
that? Why do we stay?
I think the thing with women, and it's how we're programmed, it's also how we're designed in terms of emotional. Women tend to approach relationships from a fantasy mind. You
Mm.
know, like as a child, Disney was something that was
Oh,
marketed toward girls,
talk about
right?
it.
We got Disney princesses. I never seen the boys have Disney
No,
prince.
no.
You get what I'm
Who
saying?
do they
And
look up to?
so
But
exactly
we're
the
taught to
the,
get
the
ready for marriage at
basketball,
10 years old.
yeah.
Are you kidding me?
Exactly, exactly. Baby dolls and stuff like that. And what this does is what the Disney princess thing really did for girls was happily ever after is found in a relationship.
Mm,
Happily ever after.
mm.
Prince Charming, what did Prince Charming represent? Prince Charming represented everything that a girl wanted. The perfect guy. We never really was shown Prince Charming's
No,
character. And it's crazy because Disney has a lot of flawed characters. The thing is, the character went over a lot of our heads because number one, we were too young. We were too young to internalize character. Number two, what was more emphasized to us than anything was the happily ever after, the wedding
yeah.
at the end, right? The prince becoming the woman becoming a princess,
Yes.
or the man, the prince and the princess becoming the king and the queen. That's more so what we were concerned about. So then when you become a woman, you're most women are thinking about the wedding. Most women are
Yes.
thinking about the
Not the
ring.
marriage.
And this is the reason why the reality of what we are getting ourselves into doesn't really hit until the fantasy is gone. And that's when you get used to someone. When you don't really know a man like that and you're just working on chemistry, there's a fantasy that's motivating you in the
Mm.
relationship. Our kids are going to be so cute. They're going to be, oh, my daughter's going to look just like me.
They're going to have his
Fantasy.
eyes.
They's going to have his eyes. Yes, yes. Oh, we're going to have a big house. I hope we get a house with a nice, cozy fireplace. Just, and it's not to say that there's anything wrong
Nothing
with
wrong
these
with
things,
dreaming.
but where is the substantial things? Where are the things that
What's
actually going
holding
to
the house
matter?
together? What's the foundation?
Yes. Yes, what is the foundation? These sound okay, but they're so superficial. They're so fantasy based. Where is the reality? Who is this man? Character wise, how is he going to treat you? How is he going to treat the children? What
Mm,
type of connection are you guys going to have? What's the communication going to look like? Does he get angry? Can he manage his emotions? Can you manage yours?
yeah.
We don't think about things like that. What's
Yes.
his family like? Will you get along with
Right.
them? Yeah, like, will he get along with your family? Does he even want a family? Is he family
Oh.
oriented? Right? So I think that's the reason why so many women end up with men that they're just not aligned with. And after a while, once the fantasy boop, blows up, the woman is resentful because she wasn't looking at who the man actually was in the beginning.
Mm,
She was stuck on her own fantasy. And then once she spent time with the man and the fantasy started to fade, the reality settled in. And by this time, the woman's heart is invested in something that wasn't even real.
mm,
And then a lot of women will say, I was deceived. He lied to me.
oh.
And it's like, girl, not to say that
Mm,
doesn't happen, but it's like
yes,
you lied to
but
yourself too.
some of it is our fault.
Yes,
Oh
it's
my
not. It's
gosh.
like
Your
he may
eyes
have
need to be
stretched.
wide open from the beginning.
Yes,
You
and
know, I,
that's
I when I so before my last, I would say real relationship, right? Before I moved to China,
uh-huh.
I was with this great guy. To this day, I still will say he's a great guy. And that's the thing when you say, when you're in a healthy space, even though
Yes.
you break up with someone, you know why you're breaking up with them. And it's not some
Right,
big
right.
fight. You guys are not leaving things like, I hate you.
Yeah.
Like I would say late 20s, early 30s. Communication is a big thing. So how someone speaks to me, so whatever they gave to me, I gave it back like twofold. And I realized that, oh my goodness, if they're triggering something, I cannot be with people like that. But I always left relationships I was in then, like on some, I hate you. I did some soul searching. I stopped. I just took time out. It was like I'm not being with anybody because men just bring out the worst in me. You know, that's what I was saying back then. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
these men just bring out the worst in me.
It be like that, girl. We've all had our seasons. Yes.
Fast forward, I met great guy, and it seemed like we are pretty much the same person, same diet and everything. That's a big thing for me. Like a health
Mhm.
nut. You say to me like plant-based, I'm like, hello, you know? But I think he ate
Yeah.
eggs. I don't eat eggs, but that's about it.
Oh.
Otherwise,
Hmm.
we literally we would like order the same thing because he doesn't
Yeah.
eat meat. I don't eat meat. Plant-based diet, all about exercise. We used to run together. He loves reading. I love reading. We just used to sit and read. Like that would be a
Oh, that's
visit.
cute.
It's
Yeah.
super cute. You know, that would be a visit. If he says, "Oh, baby, you want to come over?" You know, we could read, and he loved to cook. I mean, hello, a man who loves to cook. So
Let me
I would
tell you.
I would get that. He would cook,
Hmm.
set the table. He wants to like do all the things. And then after
Yes.
that, we would read. Oh my goodness, this is the relationship that this is good for me. And then, okay, obviously we started talking about serious things now, you know, kids and things like that, marriage and things like that. He wasn't against these things, but I started to see how you can be with a great guy and it can still not be like this. This is
Not be the
be the
person.
person. It's just the
Hmm.
alignment part, right? And it took me going to China for us to say, oh, this had to happen. You had to get this job. You had to move away because otherwise we would have stayed in this thing because it would have just been too hard to come face to face with the reality that
Hmm.
we're just not meant to be. It was like the perfect time because I had been praying about it. I was like, oh Lord, I don't know how
Yeah.
to cut the cord. You're going to have to do it for me. And
And he did.
I guess getting the job did it for me because it was like,
Yeah.
oh, now then we know what this means, right? And it was so peaceful. It wasn't like, I hate you. And I'm so happy that it ended like that because
Like that.
we
Yeah.
don't have to be friends. We're not in touch or anything, but at least I know that I didn't break someone's heart like unnecessarily. And I also didn't walk away
And
from that feeling like, oh my gosh, I lost a big part of me. I didn't.
me and my friend, we were having a conversation, and that type of heartbreak, we always say, it feels like death. And it can sound a little dramatic, but yes, it
Yeah.
can get to that part. And I love what you said. It feels like you're losing a big chunk of yourself. And yes, it feels like you're dying on the inside, like somebody stabbed you. And that's really the feeling because, like you said, we as women, we love so intensely. We give our body, we give our soul, we give, our just ourselves emotionally. And so, yes, when you give that to a person, God never did,
Intended
he
for
never
you.
assigned you to, yes, he never assigned to your life. He never
Yeah.
intended you to be with. That's the reason why it hurts. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about my mission in terms of mentoring women. I mentor men as well because they feel that as well. We may be the ones that fall in love harder and deeper, but men still get attached to women that they sleep with. There's an
Hmm.
attachment. And, they may be attached uh, due to different things, but there's still an attachment. So now you
Hmm.
have an attachment with this person that you're not supposed to be with. And that's the reason why I feel like when relationships do come to an end, a lot of the endings could get to a toxic place because it's like that attachment is kind of difficult to break away from. Like a man will decide that a woman is not his wife, he doesn't want to be with her, but he can't stop sleeping with her.
Yeah.
There's an attachment. That's because there's an attachment. You have two people who can't stand each other, but they can't stop sleeping with each other. They can't stop being with each other. When we create these type of attachments and soul ties, the Lord helps us heal. He severs that tie. He heals the heart. He heals the spirit. Like you said, we lost a piece of ourselves. God restores that part of ourselves that we lost. And so once that part of ourselves is restored, now we have what's needed to give to the person that he's actually assigned us to, right? So this is why, like I said, the relationship with God is so important. And I know that everyone, is not spiritual or not faith-based.
Yeah.
And in terms of, of that person asking, well, how do I seek healing outside of that? A therapist, right?
Exactly.
Seek a therapist that can help you self-reflect, that can help you navigate through those feelings. But I will always recommend, spiritual, I call it spiritual health because we say mental health, but there isn't really a market, and that's why I feel like God is using me to do. There isn't a big market for spiritual health because we don't really think about the spiritual health. We are spirits too. You have to replenish your spirit, and I feel like that's what God helps us do. So yes, mind, you go see your therapist, body, self-care, diet, spirit, God. So
Mm. I want us to move on to talking
yeah,
about your mentoring. I want to preface by saying you have to be honest you have to look at your past honestly in order to move forward and know the kind of future you want to have. If you're still going to be in denial about the part you played, In
Yes.
some of the things that went on, you're not going to fully move on. God rewrote my story from the point where I
Mm,
said I do not want this anymore.
mm.
Feeling like this, feeling so low, feeling so depressed,
Oh my God. This is
feeling
a
like I
mirror.
don't
Yeah.
know who I am.
Yeah.
I want to be able to look at myself in the mirror and still
Yeah.
see that little girl who is all for you,
Wow.
Lord, who just
Yeah.
woke up every day saying, I love you, Lord, and the joy of the Lord is my strength. Like, I want to
Yes.
be that girl who is now a woman who lives in this truth. But because of
Yeah.
certain decisions, where I just felt and God, I feel like He found me at the point where I fell, at that moment where I fell, where I made that decision, the first one that led to now a series of things, and He started rewriting, and I literally gave me a second chance. You know, like when they say the God of second chances, like allow
Yeah.
me to start over in a way that I could never have even imagined that I could, because I
Yes.
thought if I were to do it on my own, I would keep repeating the patterns. And that's why
The,
I want us to talk about your mentoring, because I think a big part of it is how do people avoid patterns? Like you're repeating the same thing.
this is so perfect because I felt like what you were saying was a mirror to how I found faith, to how I found God. Prior to my walk with Christ, now I was raised in the church, right? Um, from a little girl up into the age of 18. But I would say that that was where the seed was planted, but not really because once I became 18, I started to question things,
Yeah.
right? I started to be a seeker of knowledge. And so I started to learn about sexism, I started to learn about racism, I started
Yeah.
to learn about religion and just how that played. And then I started to see the politics within the church that I didn't like.
Oh, the isms and the
And
schisms.
yes, I started to see the politics in the church. I started to see the toxic culture within the Baptist church that I was in. And I had concluded, oh, this God thing is a joke, right? And so I stepped
Mm,
away from the church. But the crazy thing is, I started to seek God for the first time. I felt like religion did not set me up for knowing God. So I went on a spiritual journey and I was like, that's a joke. What the church says about God, that
yeah.
they're a joke because all of these things, all of these toxic culture, just toxic culture was found in the church. So I was like, these people can't be telling me the truth about God. So I went on this spiritual journey and I started to just tap into the whole new age ideology, right? Of the universe and energy and good energy, bad energy, and God must represent good energy. So he's the light. And it's like I had the right idea, but I was on the wrong path, right? I was on the wrong path, but this was a start. I was seeking a deeper understanding of
Mm,
who God was, right? But that did lead to this notion of, well, I must be a God. I must be the God. The universe gives us power and we're all God. So this was the ideology that I was living by for some time. And it felt empowering in the moment. And so, I'm doing all the astrology and I'm a goddess. I can make anything happen. Manifestation. I'm feeling myself.
law of
You know,
attraction.
yes, law of attraction. I'm making my vision boards and I'm accomplishing things on that vision board too. So I'm thinking it's real. Oh, this works. I have cracked the code until I got my heart broken, right? And that humbled me because I'm like, wait a minute.
Hang
Hold on,
on.
wait a minute, wait a minute. If I'm a goddess, how did this happen? Made me realize, gave me the realization, you are not a goddess. You can't control everything. You don't have power.
Mm,
You're not invincible. You are human with limitations. And I
mm.
said, I got it all wrong. So I did not figure out who God was. And I got so fed up. I was so hurt because this heartbreak, when I tell you it did it for me. And I feel like God let it happen because he knew it was going to lead me to him. And I said this prayer, right? I got mad one day and I said a prayer. I said, God, I don't know who you are. I don't know what you are, but I want to know you. Show yourself to me. Tell me who you are. Give me understanding of who you are because I don't know. And I want to know who you are. And I meant that prayer. I
Mm.
meant it. I meant it with all my heart, with all my soul. And would you know that a few minutes later, I'm scrolling on YouTube. Mind you, I did not follow any Christian content, anything. I was done with Christianity because of my experience in the church, right? All of a sudden, a video pops up. It was something like 7 ways God is trying to get your attention.
Okay.
I said, and my spirit, for some reason, I was led to watch it. What is this? I had to watch it. I can't even explain it. Something said, watch it. Now let me watch this. And the guy, he was speaking about God. As soon as, he started quoting the Bible, I sucked my teeth.
Here
Uh,
we go
uh,
again.
here we go. Here we go, Christians. But this was totally different from what I had seen in church.
Mm,
He was grounding practical, just life tips in scripture. He was grounding it in scripture. And I'm like, wait a minute. I ain't know the Bible talked like this. I didn't know stuff like this was in the
yeah.
Bible. And it spoke to me. And then all of a sudden, after I watched the video, I had this burning desire to read the Bible. And I was like, what is wrong with me? Because you could not pay me to read the Bible
Hmm.
before then. It was like reading hieroglyphics,
Yeah.
right? When I would read it when I was at church, I didn't really understand most of it. But this time, there was something burning in me. Read the Bible, read the Bible. So I said, you know what? I want to read the Bible and I want to read it from start to finish. I don't want to just open it and read scriptures. I
Mm,
want to read from the very
you want to
beginning,
pick and
like,
choose.
like, yes, like I would any other book. So I started to read the Bible. And Genesis, it's a book that, I've created a lot of life hacks from. Genesis gave me so much insight that I was searching for in New Age spirituality. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That first line shook me to my core. That's what I was searching for. Who created this? You know, I kept saying the universe, the universe, the universe. I really wanted to know, well, who created the universe? I'm outside hugging
Yes, the
trees,
God of the
laying in the
universe,
grass,
the
yes,
cosmos,
talking to the birds.
everything.
Right. Exactly. So here I am finding out, well, I'm finding out the creator of the universe, and I'm taken back. And then God created humans, and I'm taken back, feeling stupid. I'm like, all this time I'm talking to rocks, I'm talking to crystals, and I'm worshiping the universe. And that everything I learned in church about God, our creator, and creating heaven, well, this is the answer I've been looking for. This is what I've been searching for. And from that moment on, I kept reading the Bible, and the Bible inspired me from other people's stories, from the characters in the Bible story. I said, yeah, I want a relationship with God. I want to be like Moses. I want to be like David. I want to be like all of these people who had this relationship with God, and they were able to do, these impossible things
Mm,
because of their relationship with God. They learned about who they were. They learned that God, they had a purpose,
mm.
right? There was a purpose for their birth. There was a purpose for their children's birth. Like, so I started learning, wow, and in reading the Bible and applying the Bible, I got to know God. And not just from reading, but actually applying. Like, okay, so they praying to God. I mean, God heard me when I said, I want you to show me who you are. This wasn't a coincidence.
Yes.
This is God answering me. He showed me who he is. I could have been led to anything. I could have been led to Muhammad. I could have been led to Buddha. I left it open. I said, God, show me who you are because I don't know. And he led me to the Bible. And so I knew this is God. This is the God. This is God. That's how I found my identity. That's how I found my purpose. Prior to that, I was a creative. And I was doing a bunch of creative things. Even though I was working as a mental health clinician, I didn't take it seriously, to be quite honest. It was just something I was just really good at. I felt like I was really good at listening to people. And, I was empathetic, but I felt like, well, that don't give me no money. They don't really pay me they don't pay me that much. And, it burns me out. I want a job where I'm doing creative things. And
Yeah.
I didn't say it, but it was like I wanted something more validating, right? I wanted something where I was seen as more glamorous and I'm in the spotlight. And then when I got into this relationship with God, the Lord said, I did not give you creative talents for you to use them in vain. I did not create you to be,
Mm.
a R&B singer. I did not create you to be a model. I did not create you to be, this filmmaker and this author that writes romantic thrillers. Because I published 5 novels. I wrote romance thrillers, right? And so the Lord said, I gave you these gifts for my glory to use for me. And I made you a counselor. I gave you the ability to hear and see people because that is also the purpose that I have for you, so that you can bring people to me. And that's when I realized, wow, so I had it all wrong. Everything, even down to my purpose, even down to my identity. And then I surrendered. I said, God, I want to follow your way for me. And I gave up all of those creative pursuits that I was in. And it wasn't easy,
Yeah.
right? Because I felt like I was giving up my identity. And I cried and I said, who will I be? Who will I be if I give up everything I've known about myself, everything
Right.
that I felt like gave me purpose? Lord, who will I be? And God just comforted me the entire, just all the way through, because I would pray to God about it. And God said, I'm going to give you a new identity. I will tell you and show you who you will be. And God said, I will give you purpose for your creative gifts. I gave you these gifts.
Yeah, that's
You'll be
from
able
me.
to use them. Yeah, they're from me. And when I tell you that the fulfillment I have never felt this type of fulfillment. And to be a single woman, right, with no children, no husband, but to be the most fulfilled I've ever been in my life, this is how I know that I am who God
Oof.
wanted me to be,
Chills.
right? And I'm the girl, just when I think about the way the Lord
Yeah.
has always guided me, even when I was I call it rebellion, when I was in
Yeah.
rebellion. And so I just think of all the ways that God had his hand on me, even when I didn't
Mm.
know him. Right. And then, because he knew I would come to him, he knew that I would seek him. And here I am today. A lot of women don't think that you can be fulfilled single. A lot of men think that too, that you can't be fulfilled single without, we tend to revolve our identities in relationships. I have never had this type of happiness. And I wouldn't be honest if I didn't say that it didn't come with some type of, I don't like to use the word suffering, but I would
Yeah.
say challenge, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Sacrifices. I've made a lot of sacrifices. The Lord has healed my heart and my mind when it comes to people, and not just romantic relationships, but also friendships, family. The Lord has healed relationships in my family through me. My first godly friend that I met was actually when I was in rebellion. And she was the first person I had ever met in my life who modeled real love and emotional support. I
Mm.
wasn't raised from that. Love always came with strings attached, right?
Mm.
And that was scary for me. And at first I didn't believe it. I was like, what do you want? What do you want from me? She didn't want anything. And that's how I feel in the relationship with God. because the Lord seen me, he heard me, he didn't force me to, change who I was in a day. Even when I was in rebellion, didn't condemn me for that rebellion. Basically said, "Come, my child, let me walk with you, yet let me help you." This type of love, I know I can never repay you, but I want to be better. And so this, I say all this to say, this is how my faith mentoring was established. And it made me a better person. It elevated my life. I want everybody to know that everything they've been searching for is with God.
Tell me about the title, why you called it guided, by faith, and like,
Okay,
and also how you help people with breaking
with the
patterns.
patterns.
Yeah.
Got it. So, how I came to the name Guided by Faith, the best friend that I talked about, she actually inspired the name.
Oh,
She, yeah, yeah, she, woman of God, I love her. She gifted me a jewelry set, and it came from a faith-based company, and the jewelry box said "Guided by Faith," right? And one day, as God was kind of leading me into mentoring, I was like, I want to mentor people the same way I do mental health. And I said, well, what should I call it? And then I prayed. I said, God, what should I call it? I don't have a name. And then my eyes fixated on the box that was sitting on the table. And the box said, Guided by Faith. And I'm like, that's
that's
perfect.
it.
And yes, even when I went in the box, on the little necklace set, there is a Matthew 16:9 that said, all things are possible with God.
Yeah.
Yep. So that's how I got my name from my friend. And as far as the patterns, how do you get people to, reflect on the patterns? Well, I would first start with my own journey. When you start a relationship with God, the Lord provides you inner wisdom and truth about your own life. And what he does is he shows you patterns, right? This is how transformation happens. Before God, you have a mentality, you have a way of seeing the world, right?
Yes.
And then in the relationship with God, because, Christ was a truth teller, yeah? Because the Lord has foresight, insight, he sees everything. So when you're in relationship with God, he enlightens you. He tells the truth about your,
Everything.
if you have everything, yes, if you have a certain perspective about something, if it's a distorted truth that you got from the world, the Lord will tell you. So the Lord started to enlighten me about certain patterns. When you read the Bible, you also gain wisdom, right? It went from there to my family values and how my family thought. One of the things that the Lord kind of showed me was the relationships that we had in the family. A lot of the relationships weren't good relationships. And then I
Mm.
started to really, like, for example, my grandmother was an orphan. My grandfather was an orphan. They weren't raised by their parents,
Oh,
right? So they weren't raised in environments where they were emotionally poured into. And growing up, I wasn't emotionally poured into. And I used to have a deep resentment in my heart toward my family. Healing isn't just, you just stop being resentful. He gives you perspective
yeah.
about why certain things are. And so in the relationship with God, I realized that the reason why my family wasn't emotionally supportive is because they weren't emotionally supported. They
Yes.
did not know what it was,
They couldn't
or,
give you what
how,
they didn't know
right?
anything about.
Exactly. Exactly. They couldn't give me what they didn't know anything about. So I said, wow. So that's why that happened. So it didn't mean any harm. So that was insight that I received. In terms of relationships, why I kept choosing the same person over and over and over again. Why did I keep getting my heart broken?
Mm.
And I used to blame the men. And then God gave me insight about myself. I wasn't leading with my best attributes. I was leading from a superficial place, my beauty, my curves, my sensuality. And the Lord says, this is why you were attracting men who only cared about the shallow
Yeah.
because you were leading with the shallow. And I didn't realize that. I said, wow, God.
Mm.
And when I started to replay certain relationship experiences, like men kind of letting me know how they saw me, it was like they didn't even really see me for who I was deep down inside. I want men to see your spirit more than anything. And so the Lord taught me how to lead from a spiritual place and not just from a flesh place. Like he taught me how to stimulate the heart of a man and not the flesh of a man. That was my problem, you know?
Wow, wow, wow.
It wasn't just the men. It wasn't just the men. It was how I was showing up. Those were the patterns in terms of, what was motivating me to keep choosing the same men, and keep getting the same relational outcomes. I kind of felt like it was impossible to really connect deeply with a man. Why can't I connect deeply with these men? These men are so shallow. And I realized it was because I was being shallow, you
Wow.
know?
Everything
Right.
has a root cause. The patterns for me were about boundaries. I just did not
Yeah.
know what on earth boundaries were and how to even set them. I knew nothing about boundaries.
Yeah.
And I needed life to knock me. I'm
Yes.
hearing you talk a lot about introspection and everything and rewiring of the mind as well. The transformation part, really essentially for me, I found out was also about rewiring, like your whole mind
Yeah.
perspective, mindset. I want you to speak on that, please. The discipline
Yes.
part.
What I realized, and this is how I became disciplined, when I kind of reflect on all of the choices that I made without God, and then boom, I get into a relationship with God, I realize that we don't know what we need because we didn't create ourselves. We didn't create ourselves. We didn't create our purpose.
Ah,
And so as humans, we really don't know what we need. We don't know who we're going to be 5, 10, 20, 30 years from now. So we are not making decisions based on need because there's no way that we have the foresight to know what that is.
mm,
So a lot of the times we make decisions based on what we want. And it always leads to disappointment. It always leads to unfulfillment. Like being an author, being a filmmaker, being a singer, songwriter, these were things that I thought that I wanted for myself. And I remember after publishing my fifth book and I was building a little fan base and everything, I sat one day and that emptiness that I was trying to fulfill was
mm.
still there. And I was like, this don't make any sense. And I'm just like, how is it that I wanted a relationship like every other woman, and I wanted this type of guy, I got this type of guy, and I don't even want him? That don't sound right. Like,
It
what is
doesn't.
going on? Yes, like none of these things are fulfilling me. How is it that I'm doing everything in my life that I want to do and I don't have the happiness that I want? I don't have the fulfillment that I want. Like, so when I got into relationship with God, it was that made me question, I don't know what I'm doing. I have no idea what I need. And so
Ah,
I started to just let God lead me. This is what keeps me disciplined, right? I feel like doing things my way always led to disappointment. It always led to heartbreak. It always led to pain. And so I feel like, okay, I don't want to deal with heartbreak. I don't want to deal with pain. I don't want to deal with disappointment of making the wrong decision. So now I'm just going to allow God to lead me to the right decision. And ever since I've been doing that, I have not experienced any disappointment. I have not experienced any regret. And I'm like, wow, God, you really know what I needed. And sometimes it blows my mind because God will tell me to do something that's the complete opposite of what I would do. For example, when God said, I want you to get out of the dating market, I was like, what? How is that going to help me find my person one day, God? And I before God, I was dating. Yeah, I was, meeting people, going out on dates,
yeah,
enjoying myself, but I was getting frustrated. I was building just bitterness, resentment because these guys just didn't align with me. And I'm like, oh, I'm just wasting so much energy, so
yeah.
much time.
Time.
And then the Lord said, I want you to get out of the dating market. I feel like I'm not dealing with what women are commonly dealing with. Like women today, a lot of women are so bitter and angry at
Yeah,
men. And
yeah.
here I'm over here like, oh, and I'm like, wow, I would never have this.
The
posture.
stress that it comes with.
Yes, I would never have this peace to even welcome a new person if I was still in the dating market. And not only that, but through mentoring and just walking in faith, the Lord is introducing me to men of God I never knew existed. God is at the center of their lives. They believe in waiting till marriage. They're practicing abstinence and they're good looking, because because when you're in church, it be the old uncle looking men that you just think is available. Like, man, the young men, it's sad a man gotta
Oh,
lose all his
I'm
hair
done.
and be an uncle before he start realizing the importance of God. No, it's men our age who God is using the same way he used men in the Bible. I am meeting the Lukes, the Davids, the
Hello.
Josephs. God is preparing me. I feel God is preparing me for kingdom marriage and kingdom alignment. And single as a dollar bill. But I have faith that this is what the Lord is promising me and preparing me for. And I'm a woman that have dreams. The Lord even gives me dreams about my husband. He shows me character more than anything. He gave me insight in my own transformation, the men that I had been exposed to in my upbringing, right? And the relationships I had been exposed to, they never included God. They were only centered on, two people seeking validation, two people being attracted to each other. My mama, I love my mama. But my mama, oh, Denzel, always fixated on how good a man look. And I followed that pattern. My grandmother too. My grandmother, I'll tell you, Grandma, why you chose Grandpa? Oh, 'cause he was tall and handsome. You know, like, yeah, your grandmother turned away, rejected a pastor because he was too short. And, and
Oh,
so, you know what
I'm
I mean?
done.
I'm
I'm
like,
done.
there was a man trying to court my grandma. He was a pastor. She didn't want him because he was short. You know what I mean? My grandfather don't even go to church like that, but she gave him a chance because he was tall, dark, and handsome. So these are patterns in the family that the Lord exposed to me and said, listen, girl, if you don't want the love story that your mother and your grandmother had, I'm gonna need you to fixate more on the internal qualities of a man versus what he looks like and how he stimulates your flesh. And so I said, you got it, God, because I don't want to keep making the same mistakes. I'm
I'm
listening to you.
done. Well, I actually fasted on and off for like 5 years. And that was really
Mm,
for me a turning point in my life. Like I thought, oh my goodness, just change me. Let me be different so that I'm ready. And after those 5 years, I met a youth pastor at church
hmm.
and stuff. That's the guy who hurt me more than at that point in my life. That's the first guy who, like, my first heartbreak, I would say.
Wow.
And it took me, I think, another 5 years or so to really realize that after that heartbreak, I had been harboring anger. I was angry at myself. I was
Mm,
angry at God. I said, how could I have done all these things, trying to live right, trying to pray, and you bring this man into my life for him to hurt me? Like, I don't understand. Immediately, something
yeah.
in me was like, immediately I didn't discern, and I think it's because he played the part so well.
Right, right. Oh, I want to talk about that too.
Yeah, that's why
When,
I'm bringing this up. I want to give you this background because he played the
yeah,
part so well. So
yeah,
sometimes you can pray, but
right.
you so badly want to believe that everybody is like you, is approaching everything with good intention. I didn't realize after that breakup how much it cut me.
I think that women feel like when you go through a healing journey with God, that you're all of a sudden going to be able to just choose men perfectly. And that's not the case.
Mm,
uh you have to include God. And that's what God showed me. The relationship with God is not just, something that, oh, you have your daily habits and your daily rituals. When it comes to choosing a partner, I say that this is your purpose partner. Whatever God created you for, that's who this partner is going to accommodate and help you in. You have to discern with God. When I got close to God, a guy that I had broke things off with, that when I tell you I was so in love with this man, we were dealing with each other for about 2 years. He didn't value me for who I was, or he couldn't accommodate me for who I really was. And so I had to break away from the relationship. Fast forward, I get close to God. He tries to come back into my life. And he comes back into my life acting like he's interested in getting close to God.
Oh,
This is why I teach women how to hear God's voice, right? I have a way of hearing God's voice. One of the ways is through dreams. The Lord told me the man was a snake and a leech. I said,
mm,
what? The Lord, and this is how I knew that it's not just a dream. The Lord, in a dream, me and the guy had a conversation. In the dream, the guy told me that he was dating someone else. He asked me, "Oh, so what's this happening between you and me?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm not sure yet." And then he said, "Well, I am still dating the woman I told you about, and I want to kind of see where that goes, but I still want us to hang out." And in the dream, I was so offended. I was like, "What? So you think I'm a be your placeholder?
yeah.
You think I'm gonna let you just take up space in my life while you figure out what you got with her? Absolutely not." And then I woke up. Tell me why we end up having that same exact conversation. He said,
No.
I kid you not. He said, "So, what does this mean, Krystal? I'm back in your life." It's like deja vu. I'm like, oh my God. I'm in my head, like, oh my God. And he was like, "Well, I'm still dating a girl that I kind of told you about, and I still want to see where things go with her." I'm like, God, this is wow. Wow, God. And so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make it easy for you. This will be the last time you see me. This will be the last time we speak. You've made your decision, and so have I. And that let me know. I'm like, wow, God, I could have got caught back up with him, but you made sure I didn't. So you know what that let me know? That let me know that you want to be involved in
Hmm.
the choosing process when it comes to God. I got you. So this is the second time where God didn't give me no dream. He left it up to me, right? That he just did that to let me know, hey, I want to be involved. Don't you dare go making relationship decisions without me.
Without
Involve
me.
me. Yes, because if it wasn't for God, I would not have discerned. I would not have checked to
Blows my
see.
mind.
Yes, hey, if does he really mean this? Because my heart was with him. I was with this guy, dealing with this guy for a long time. So I wanted to believe that he changed, that he was interested in God, that he wanted. And if it wasn't for God, I would have allowed my feelings to take off. And
Over.
so yes, so God let me know, hey, involve me. You can't trust your own discernment. You can't trust your own boundaries without God. We need him all the time. He's our daily bread. And that's what he let me know. So I met this guy who seemed like he was faith-based and all about faith, and he seemed so spiritually enlightened, right? Met him off of Instagram. Um, Talked to the guy for 3 days, girl, saying just perfect. The man was so insightful, so spiritually intelligent. And I'm like, oh, he got to be the real deal. He's so spiritually intelligent, right? He could be a preacher with this spiritual insight that he has. So I'm talking to the guy for about 4 days. And he's even like, trying to take it to a sexual place, but very subtly, right?
Mm.
Very subtly, just subtle things. But my mind is just going over my head because I just can't get over how spiritually insightful
Yeah.
he is, how romantic he is, how expressive he is. And then I said, whoa, wait a minute, God. I remember you. I remember what you said to always include you. Something don't seem right because
Yeah.
he too perfect. And it's something about him that like there's something that's making me feel like it needs to be investigated further. Not only he was being a little bit too forward in certain areas, but he was snappy, And I
Oh.
didn't know him for too long. Only talked to him for like 4 days. And I noticed that he was snappy in certain instances. And I'm like, "Ugh, I don't like that snappiness now." And I was like, it could be a small character flaw. So I prayed and I said, God, whatever I need to see in this man that I can't, show me. He was like, we were on FaceTime, and then he's like, hold on. My daughter's mother she just sent me a message. My daughter's in the hospital. And I'm like, oh my God. You can call me back. He's like, no, I want you to stay on the phone. I want you to just stay on the phone. I'll handle this. And I want to be honest with you. I work at a hospital, and children visit the doctor for a variety of things. It could be an annual checkup, their shots to get their you- is it you told me you would let me know, but it seemed like you're getting a little defensive. And then what? Let's talk about you. All of a sudden, the man switch up. It was like he was Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. Let's talk about you. Because first, you talked about me being snappy earlier, and now I feel like you're da 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 da. I'm like, I don't understand what's happening right now. You kept me on the phone for 30 minutes.
Like,
But I'm at yeah, to let me know what's going on, and now you're getting defensive. I really don't understand what's going on. I'm not afraid of you, okay? I'm not afraid of you. I don't need to be defensive. When I
oh.
tell you, absolutely crazy. And then, he hung up on me, and I was like, wow, thank you, Lord. It was like a completely different guy.
Hmm.
And it was like I didn't even have to like do anything. It just happened so randomly.
Yeah,
We can't possibly know what's in a person's heart or
yeah.
mind. Only God does. So we really do need to lean on him. We make it difficult for God's plan to unfold because we make it all about us. So when you surrender to God, you're you're welcoming God's plan to unfold. And now he can bless you. Now he can trust you with a relationship because you're not making it all about yourself.
Mm.
Now the relationship can serve a greater purpose. Now the children can serve a greater purpose. So I think this is the reason why even when we women of God take our relationship and our walk with God serious, we can still face heartbreak and make the same mistakes when we don't include God and when we don't surrender our desires to Him.
Okay. When I was operating from a place of insecurity, I also kind of was thinking, okay, I can't get to where God even wants me to get to. Going back to what you said, it's not even about me. It's not like even when I get the man, it's my husband. It'll be my child.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
possessive like
yeah.
that in that sense.
Right, right.
In that
That's
sense,
how
you
we think.
still
Yeah,
have to have that heart to say,
yeah,
I don't own anything. I'm just a steward. I don't
yes,
own
yes,
anybody. This is still God's child. He's my husband, yes,
yeah,
but he's God's child. You have to be who you are in the fullness of who God wants
yes.
you to be.
We are human. We have our emotions, we have our desires, right? And we're not perfect. So the safest thing a woman can do is to lean on God's discernment, not her own. Go to God in prayer and say, God, and be honest, right? Because that's the thing we
Yeah.
can do. That's the thing we can do with God. God, this man, I talk to God like he my homegirl.
Yes,
God, now you
he's
know what you was
everything
doing with
I
this one.
want. He's got long hair.
You
Girl, I
you
I love
you
hairy
know
God.
what you was, yes, God, you know what you was doing with this one. He fine. And I like the way he talk. And he talking all this stuff about you. So I'm coming to you.
Yeah.
I'm coming to you directly. Do you know him? Do you know him, God? Is this someone that you want me to connect with? Is this my husband? And God, if it's not, remove him from my life.
Yeah.
If it's not, show me that it's not. If you want me to be the one to walk away, I don't never say, God, remove him from my life, right? Because I don't know. I can, and I think God will do it, especially if someone is harmful to you. But I also want to make sure if I need to walk away that I can. I don't want to just put it all on the guy
Okay.
walking away, right? So I say, and God, expose him so that I can make a decision because that's
Got
what
you.
the guy that I shared. I was able to make that decision because the Lord exposed him, that he was a man dealing with anger issues. He was a man that had a whole toxic situation going on, and he was toxic. So that helped me walk away. And
It
so,
empowers you
yes,
in a type of way.
yes, it empowers me. So I don't just rely on God to take someone out my life. I tell God, expose the things that I need to see so that I could walk away, and feel good about that decision and feel
Got you.
empowered in that decision. So that's what God does. He gives me discernment that way because I ask him for it, not because I lean on my own discernment. You can ask for God for what you need. God, give me discernment. That's what I pretty much did with that God. God exposed something that I need to see, expose something that is a danger to me. That's me asking God for discernment. And the Lord said, it is done. And he gave it to me. And I said, oh, this man crazy. Up, blocked, blocked, even though I took a different approach. I ain't even blocked the guy. I'm just being dramatic. I didn't even block him. That's how strong God's discernment was, and how just, you know, I was just so set on the decision that I made that this is not my God. So my answer to you is ask God for what you need. You know, Ask God for discernment. If you don't know what you need, ask God to just take care of the situation, get the person out of your life. The most important part is for a woman to use the relationship with God to help her in her relational choices in every aspect of your life. But like you
Yeah.
said, yes, like you said, we want to give God everything else, but we don't, we want to make those decisions ourselves. No, you have to give it up to God. Give it up to him so that you can find your person and stop wasting your time. Seek the Lord for what you need, girl. Seek the Lord for discernment.
And God removes all of that, the guilt, the shame, the hurt, the pain, all of it, the anger. I was angry for so many years without realizing I was angry at God, at myself. I was like,
Mm,
I'm in this mess, in this chaos. That's why I call this your identity, your issue. What's my
right,
issue? I had
right.
to go back to what's my issue, really? What's my
Yeah,
story? I'm that loved,
I
you
love
know?
that.
Yeah.
I think that's a closing line. When it comes to answering the question of who are you in terms of your identity, I am who God sees me. This has been a beautiful conversation,
Thank you
and it
so
has been a
much.
pleasure, Label. It's really been a pleasure. Yes, girl. All right, you be blessed and have a good night.